Good morning. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our second partner webinar. Gadge and I are so excited to be able to run this second webinar in a series. We're calling it a series, aren't we, Gadge?
That's right, we are. Second one.
Yeah, so we're really looking forward to presenting to you all today the expense management deep dive. So we're going to take a look at the expense side, but more the software side as opposed to the tools. But I'll go into that in a moment. We might just give it a couple of seconds. That doom and gloom in Sydney, it looks like there's a few people taking a little bit of time to get on board. So we might just, we'll just give it another couple of minutes. Oh, wow, they're all joining now. This is fantastic. Guys, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us on these webinars. We know that you're all really, really busy. Accountants live by dates. You know, you've always got a due date. You've always got a scheduled date that you need to catch up or do something. So we really, really do appreciate your time. The response to these, well, this being our second webinar, has been awesome. Like the number of people that have registered has been phenomenal. So we're really, really excited by that. Okay. Yep, looks like the numbers. Okay, so the numbers are pretty static now. Okay, so welcome to all those people that have just joined. Again, as I said, thank you very much for taking the time to join both Gadge and I on this second webinar that we're running. Expense management deep dive. And you're probably all wondering what that was. But before we get into the webinar, I'd just like to do an acknowledgement of country. So in the spirit of reconciliation, Weel respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to all nations, people past and present. Okay, so moving on. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we do get started. If you wouldn't mind just snoozing all your notifications, which may distract you, okay? Just the webinars are only going to take roughly 30 minutes, might be 20 minutes, 30 minutes, depending. I think most of that will depend on questions at the end of the webinar. So if you wouldn't mind, even putting your phones on silent would be fantastic. The session will be recorded and we will share it with you as well so that you can then share it with colleagues that potentially couldn't make the webinar this morning. We do encourage questions, like we really encourage you to ask questions. So if you wouldn't mind putting in the Q&A function and we'll answer them all at the end of the webinar. We've got handsome Jesse, which I'm going to talk, I'll introduce Jesse in a moment. So he and I will be monitoring the questions as they come through this morning as well. So we'd love those. So any questions in the Q&A? All right, so with us today, obviously myself, Marianne, I'm the rose between the two handsome thorns on either side of me. So senior partner manager here at Weel, and the senior's got nothing to do with my age. So it doesn't represent my age, okay? It's a little bit to do with my experience, I like to think. I've done, 40 odd years, which probably does give away my age, doesn't it? It makes me a bit of a senior, but never mind. 40 plus years I've had in the accounting and payroll arena. I am an accountant myself as well. Had my own business for 10 years in New Zealand as a consultant selling accounting and payroll software. So in the same realms of what you guys are all about. So I understand the businesses and what you're trying to achieve with your clients, very much so. On my right, as the picture shows, is Gadge. Gadge and I work together. Gadge is a partner manager as well, who's joining us today too. So Gadge will be taking you through a deep dive on the product. And then we have handsome Jesse on my left. Jesse heads up our customer success team. Amazing experience. I'm actually not going to steal his limelight either. Jesse, I'll let you do all that. I'll give you the honours of that. But we're really, really privileged here at Weel to have Jesse, and I love working with Gadge. He brings a lot of experience as well to the team for the partners. Okay, moving on. So what are we going to be covering today? So we've got an overview of Weel's expense management, just a really quick overview of what Weel actually does. And the reason for that is because we do really have, we've got people that are joining the webinar that have got lots of experience. And then we've also got other accountants and bookkeepers who aren't as experienced or are fairly new. So the whole idea of the overview of the expenses, the expense management platform, there will be a real emphasis on Weel integrating into Xero, Mob and QuickBooks and how that all works. The reason that we are using Xero is because it does seem to be the preferred accounting platform for most accountants. I'm not saying all accountants, and some of you also do both, but we will be using Xero in our examples today and in our deep dive. We're also going to look at mapping the chart of accounts from your selected accounting system to the expense categories in Weel. And we're going to review how that process works. We're actually going to take you through the process to show you how it works. And then finally, we're going to take a look at setting up our custom fields. And the custom fields are really for more bespoke, which is a really funny word, isn't it? But I do like the word, bespoke tracking of financial spending in an organisation. So if we're looking at doing projects or cost centre coding, that sort of thing, depending on the client that you actually have. Okay, moving on now to the next slide, please, Gaj. Yep. So an overview of Weel. As I mentioned, there's a number of partners on the webinar that, have been using Weel and really are total experts in the Weel platform because they've been using it for a number of years now, probably a good couple of years, and they've got quite a few clients. And probably more importantly, they're using it internally. So they really do get a good understanding of how it works. And they've got clients, as I mentioned, that are using Weel as well. So for those that aren't as au fait or new to Weel, I just want to give you a really quick refresher, if you like, as to what Weel does. So we are a spend management platform. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, we work to help control business spending. Okay, so how businesses are spending their funds within the organisation. So we're providing tools for different ways businesses spend their money. So things like the reimbursements, the cards, subscriptions, okay, bills, the bills feature as well. But we also have software that sits in the background, okay, so the software system that sits in the back, and that's what helps use the tools. So it takes the information that the tools are providing and then helps us track, manage, and control that spending. Okay, so today really we are concentrating on that software in the back end that's using the tools to gather the information. And then we're going to look at how the payments and the spending are done. And then obviously that's the management and the tracking of that spending. I just wanted, before I move on to the next slide, I just wanted to share a little story here. I was actually talking with Kate Broom. Some of you may know Kate. Kate is an accountant and bookkeeper, specialising more in franchise and tax. And I know that, sorry, not specialising in franchise and tax. That's the name of her company. They specialise in franchising businesses that franchise. And I know that she's on the webinar at the moment, so I checked to make sure that I could share this. Yesterday, Kate and I were chatting, and we were talking about the Weel platform. And I was letting her know, I was just talking to her about another accountant that I was talking to, Linda, who potentially is on the webinar as well, who had a client that implemented Weel to really be able to control the spending on their cards because they had a $65,000 debt on their credit cards. And they couldn't get that debt down. So the interest kept, obviously, they're still buying, they're still using the cards, and they're getting interest on top. So they got down to 65, but they could never get past that 65. So what they've actually done is they've implemented Weel, and the 10 cards that they had, each person has now been given a Weel card. They've set up the budgets. So they're controlling what is being spent. The people that are out on the road that have got cards can still spend. They know exactly how much they've got to spend. If they need more, they can request a top up, a one-off top up, because they need some additional funds so that they can actually do that. But the advantage of this is that they are really controlling their spending, and then any profits from that controlled spend, any profits that the business is making, they're then putting that on to that $65,000 debt to try and reduce that debt. So it really, for them, it wasn't just about having that real-time view of what everybody was spending and not having to wait for statements and bank feeds. They were seeing it in real time. It was really to try and help them control and reduce the debt that the business had. And when I was telling Kate about it yesterday afternoon, actually, she said, "Oh my God, Maz, that is," she said, "I would never have thought to be able to do that." And she identified 2 clients straight away that she was going to be talking to. So I thought that was, a really good example and something that I wanted to share with you all. Okay, moving on. We're going to do a poll now. Our first poll, we've got 3 questions today, and they are really important to us. It helps us with, future webinars that we might run, but also making sure that we can provide you with the information that you need to be able to learn more about Weel and know about Weel and be able to introduce it to your clients. Okay, so just a couple of seconds there. Oh, great. Oh, wonderful. Wow. This is like that Menti thing that they do at Xerocon, isn't it? Where everyone sits there and you watch those little balls go to the different categories. This is awesome. Wow, and it looks like everybody's partaking too. This is fantastic. Thank you, team. Wonderful. All right, well, I think we might move on. I think there's just about everybody has answered, so that's fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so before I hand you over to Gaj to take you through a deep dive to actually show you the things that we're talking about. So we're spotlighting today the connecting of your accounting software, whether that be Xero, MYOB or QuickBooks. We're going to discuss how we map the chart of accounts, and we're going to look at setting up custom expense fields. But before we do that, I want to hand over to Jessie. Put you on the spot there, Jess. Sorry, a little bit earlier than what you anticipated. But the reason I want to hand over to Jessie before Gaj goes into his dive is because Jessie, can you share with us some of the clients that you've been working with? So we have accountants and bookkeepers that are quite happy to onboard their clients, which is absolutely brilliant, and we support them in doing that and provide all the resources we can. But I know that there are a number of them also that use our onboarding services for some of their clients. So I thought maybe now, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and letting the team know a little bit about you, and maybe just a couple of examples of clients that you've worked with in the last, couple of months.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks again, Maz, for bringing me in. Always love to jump on a call with yourself and Gaj. But look, for everyone on the call that's not met me before, my name's Jessie. I look after success at Weel, and you can think of success as sort of like a modern account management function. We like to work really closely with our partners. It could be, direct businesses, getting business value out of your Weel account. So I myself am an ex-practicing accountant. I've worked at Xero for a number of years, so definitely helps to know my way around the chart of accounts, and it's not unfamiliar territory. But Maz, to your point, when we are thinking about Weel businesses and who uses expense reporting and integrations, look, I think there's also a misconception with Weel. Sometimes, there's a lot of people that think it might be for small and medium businesses. But I've had the pleasure of being able to work. We've got a partnership with Ability First Australia that work with some of the largest NDIS organizations in Australia. So we're talking many millions of dollars in Weel accounts, having to manage ERP systems. So on one side, there is that zero connection. And I've worked with lovely organizations such as North Queensland Cowboys that do use Xero. But we do also facilitate for the larger side of organizations that have ERPs, such as your NetSuites. I know the content today is focused on Xero, but some of the things that we'll touch on, you can also sort of use it in sort of larger organizations as well. So something just to mention there.
I think Gadgel, when he's going through that expense management side of setting up those custom fields, that might be a good time. I think Gadgel probably highlight that as well, but that's what it's all about, right? The ability to be able to be set up bespoke custom tracking for, depending on what the business is, whether it is a cost center, whether it is a project, or whether you're using the tracking categories in Xero, right? So we can do that sort of thing. So that's awesome. Okay, just making sure, little reminder, guys, please don't forget the questions. If you've got any questions as we go through, don't hesitate to drop them in the Q&A box as well. Okay, Gadge, it's up to you now. We'll all mute out. Well, we won't. Jesse, don't mute yourself, darling. You'll need to probably jump in here, but I'll mute myself for a little bit. Go, Gadge, all yours.
Right. Thank you very much, Marianne and Jesse. Hi, everyone. I'm Gadge, and I'm a partner manager here at Weel as well. A bit about myself, been in the same ecosystem for a long time, so I've dealt with a lot of apps as well. So let's get started. What we're going to do today is I'm going to take you through a live demonstration of connecting Weel to your accounting system, mapping of chart of accounts, and setting up custom fields as well. So what you can see here is our Weel platform, and once you've signed up onto Weel, this is kind of what it would look like. I've created a couple of budgets, but let's go into looking at how we're going to set up our integration. So first of all, you're going to see that little toggle on the top there, that little gear icon. That's what I'm going to click on. Click on there. We're going to click on settings. And on the left-hand side below settings, we're going to find integrations. Now, just to connect to your preferred accounting software, I've connected to Xero. Simply, all you'd need to do is click on Xero. For this case, you'll be redirected to Xero. You'll enter your email address and password to log into Xero, and then you'll be able to choose your client file, the one that you'd like to link up to this certain business. Now, that's how easy and simple it is. Now, as we do this, we're going to establish a bank feed. So there's absolutely nothing for you or the client to do to get that up and running. Now, as soon as these transactions start being made via the Weel platform, we're going to see those bank feed transactions pull into your accounting software. And in this case, it's going to be Xero. So what does that mean? No more manual data entry, no more spending hours reconciling. I know how much of a pain that can be. Fast and accurate month end and close. And this is going to produce more efficient and accurate financial reports for you. So that's how simple and easy you can connect. And generally, it'll take a minute or so once you connect up. Now, we're going to move on to looking at the chart of accounts. And that's just located above the integration. So I'm just going to click on that now.
Gadge, just 1 second before you jump into the chart of accounts there.
Yeah, go there, Jess.
One thing you're talking about saving time reconciling, I think it's just a really important point to make as well, is that you can think of Weel as both the left and the right hand side of the bank feed. So when Gadge is saying you're saving time reconciling, just think about it, because we're facilitating the payment and we submit the expense report that backs it up very easily, all transactions that enter Xero are going to be in a match state, ready to click OK on. So really, Xero, the reconciliation process in Xero is more of a formality, and you can breeze through it very quickly. So just to add a bit of color as to why you save time there. But sorry, Gadge, over to you, mate.
Thank you very much, Jesse. Thanks for sharing that. So we're going to move on to the chart of accounts and mapping the chart of account to your Weel's pay expense categories so that you can make sure that each transaction is automatically coded for you. So you've got the ability to just sync with Xero. Once you sync it with Xero, it'll take a minute or so, and then it will start pulling that through. You can select the corresponding accounting code for each expense. So what I've done here is I've got entertainment. That's one of my default categories. So I've selected that there. I might have some other default categories, office equipment, that falls in there as well. You also do have the ability to set up your custom categories. Now, when I talk about custom categories, some businesses, and I think Jesse will jump in after this, but a lot of business, they tend to use their own custom categories because it's specific to business related transactions that their employees would do. The reason for setting up custom categories, it in turn makes it a bit more simplified for your employees to make the correct selections when completing expenses. So in my example for my my business here, I've got employees that do travel, but it's both domestic and international travel. So what I've done here is I've created that custom category, simply pulled it through, clicked on that, I've got domestic and I've got international, and I've chosen them there. And Jesse, I was going to throw it back to you, mate. I know you've worked with quite a few clients. Can you please share some real life examples of how these businesses have taken use of using these custom categories?
Yeah, for sure. Well, look, I think about it when I was practicing even myself, sometimes I'd be scratching my head about why I'd allocate to a particular account code. So one of the things I'm thinking about here is, one, the categories are really simple for anyone to understand and say, okay, let's be very prescriptive where we're going to allocate it. Let's reduce the time that we're actually reallocating expenses and having to do that. So, you know, at the end of month process, generally it's all going to be right because it's very, very simple to set up. But you can also restrict these categories at a budget level. So if I issue cards to a particular individual, they only need, let's say, domestic travel and maybe it's office expenses. Reduce the chance of human error because there's only two options for them. And look, as I said, I think naturally larger organizations tend to gravitate towards custom categories. I know recently, just thinking about, you know, Oz Harvest, currently working with them. And the default categories do have their time and place, but Gad, you have a really good example there. You know, if you have Qantas, the default category is not necessarily going to work because you can only tie it into one account code. Now with Qantas, you might have domestic and international travel. And so you're going to generally set up custom categories for these. So I think in a lot of times, larger organizations, even small to medium, end up gravitating toward custom categories because, one, you can be very prescriptive in the name. What are we trying to do? We're trying to reduce the time that we spend reallocating transactions. And two, we get the right outcome because it's tied into the correct chart of accounts. So it just flows through into Xero quite seamlessly and makes the end of month very tidy.
Yeah, and that's right, Jesse, that's right. It's going to make mapping much more streamlined and the data flowing into Xero and increases your efficiency there. So thanks for that. So that's our chart of accounts there. We've looked at default categories and custom categories. Now we're going to move into looking at tracking categories and custom fields. And that's located in our expense management, which you can see here. I'm hovering over. So I'm going to click into that. And we're going to now go look at our custom fields. Now, custom fields or tracking categories, as you call them, are useful for tracking spending against unique business codes, project codes, client names, or job numbers, which in turn will help with better financial reporting. Now, what I've done here is all I've done is click sync with Xero. I've got two specific tracking categories that I want to measure over, which in this case is region and project code. This is going to give me that ability now to see how different areas of the business are going to be performing, so I can make better proactive business decisions. So for example, let's say we've got multiple businesses with multiple work locations. I can now track either sales for each location by setting up these tracking categories and tracking options for each location. Jesse, throwing it back
Awesome.
on a daily basis. So let us know about those businesses that love using our custom fields or tracking categories, as we call it.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, tracking categories really powerful tool, and as I said, working at Xero, they're great to get pretty comprehensive P&Ls built out by region. For us as accountants and bookkeepers, it allows us to focus on advisory work. And as we all know, a healthy client's business is a healthy business for us because it leads to tax work, it leads to expansion opportunities. There's a lot of opportunity for revenue for us. So my whole understanding is, accurate, timely financial data is the lifeblood of the business. And if we don't capture things like the tracking categories of different regions or different projects, how are we going to evaluate the profitability of each different divisional cost? So what I really like about the custom fields it happens a lot with customers. I'm not going to name names because I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I've seen a lot of businesses where they've, in the past, it's been really difficult to get cards issued to individuals because it's a very timely process. Now, when it comes to Weel, they've been able to issue cards very, very easily in a matter of seconds. But what that's led to is there's no more card sharing. So now we can actually identify where the expense is coming from, allocate it to the correct division. And then when we're building our P&L, we actually have accurate data to then compare them with. So obviously you've got your custom fields there pulled through automatically from Xero. You just need to assign it at a budget level. And I think, Gad, you're going to talk on this in a second, but it's really, really easy for staff members to capture that at the point of sale. And so what that means is people aren't putting it in the too hard basket. You capture it and it's done and dusted. So they don't need to worry about it any longer. That's what I think about custom fields. The only addition I'd put in there is that you can use this to capture any dimensions for ERP systems. So it's probably a different session where we focus on that one, but it's good to talk on and just say that the option's there.
Yeah. Awesome. Appreciate that, Jesse. So guys, what we've looked at now is we've been on the back end of Weel, looked at our chart of accounts, set it integrated to Xero and created our tracking categories. Now I'm going to show you what it's going to be like for employees when they complete their expenses and how easy it's going to be for them. So I'm just going to move across here. Here I've jumped into our mobile app. As you can see, I've got a card, which is under the name travel, and I've completed a couple of expenses. So I'm going to show you now how easy it is to complete these expenses. So I've completed a couple of expenses here. We've got one that I've purchased a coffee. Really simply, this is how easy it is for an employee to complete expense on the go. All they need to do is upload a tax invoice. I would just hit upload tax invoice, choose from files. Got one here. There we go. Can open it and put it in there. We'll get there. There we go. It's attached. Takes a couple of seconds, but we've got there. You can clearly see which budget I've spent it from. If there are any attendees present, I'll be able to choose that. And then from there, you can see the GSC amount. And this is a category. This is what I was talking about. This is what we wanted to make it much more simplified for employees to choose. So this here, we can see that we've purchased a coffee. You can see it there, $4.85. Really simply, we know that's going to fall under food and drink. So what I've done here is I've got only a couple of categories. And for that employee, it would have been easier to choose food and drinks, select that option, choose a region because they're working on a particular region there, was in Sydney, just to get a bit more granular. And it was for a certain project that we're working on, which was located at Qantas Drive. And simply, they could just say, look, coffee. And that's how easy and simple it is to complete that, that expense. And there, just like that, we've completed that expense. Now, the great thing with this is I'm going to show you how this is going to now flow into the transactions listing within Weel and then flow into Xero. So we're going to jump on to another one here if you guys like. We're going to look at another expense that we've done. So we've had some lunch with a client. We can add that attendee if we'd like. Say we could add an attendee. Say it's an external client. So we can just say John Smith, and we can just name it company X.
Really good for FBT tracking here, guys, if you're using.
Yeah, 100%. And we can create that attendee and add that there and save. So I've got out of the attendee, we'll choose the correct category. Really simply, again, we've kept it very simple and easy. All they have had to do is come through and select food and drinks. The project code wasn't actually at Qantas Drive this time, it was at Park Road. We hit save, and we could just say that was lunch with the client. And just like that, it's saved and that expense is completed. So basically, we've just showed you how easy it is for any employee to complete that. And now that's going to be matched up into Weel and move into Xero. So what I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm going to show you what it looks like in Weel. So Under spend management, we're going to look at our transactions listing, and this is a real-time bank feed of everything happening within your Weel account. So as you can see here, these are the two expenses that I've completed. Really simply, it shows you the merchant, so you know exactly where the employee spent the money, the type of payment, the card payments. And I know what Maz alluded to, we do a couple of different payments here. You've got subscriptions as well and bill payments. So it clearly outlines what type of payment that is. You've got your category. So this is another good point. Just before
Gaj, sorry, Gaj, to interrupt. That
Yeah.
payment type is a new addition to the system. So that was only just released recently. So that could be something new that some of the accountants and bookkeepers that are online weren't aware of. So that was something that we only released a couple of weeks ago, team. Thanks, Gaj. Sorry.
No, that's all good. Yeah, so these actual payment types are new, and it's going to actually help you filter down as well when you want to look at particular transactions as well. So let's just say here somebody had chosen the wrong category once they were entering the expense. Now, as the accountant and bookkeeper, you have the ability now to come and always correct that, right? Just to make sure that's been inputted correctly. You'll be able to see the amount. GSC, we'll see the tax invoice that's attached there. You'll see the budget, the team member, and now you'll see the breakdown. Here we can see the region, the project code, and if there was an attendee. And so this is where I added the attendee. There was one attendee. You can see that it was John Smith from Company X. Another great.
Just one way that I want to talk about how I've seen customers use this. We're working with quite a large freight company recently. And what was really interesting was it was probably the second time that we got into the account. We were looking at the transaction table, and they had a staff member that was going quite rural for a bit of business development. Now, what happened was they were looking into the transaction table here. They saw a purchase for a Virgin flight, but then they saw one just above it, which said they'd spend a bit of money going to the Virgin Lounge to have a drink before the flight. Now, what was really interesting there was in a couple of seconds, I think it was 10 minutes after the transaction, they saw this source of truth. They found that it was out of policy spend. They said, mate, we're not paying for you to have a drink. That wasn't the agreement here. So what I found really interesting was this transaction table is an immediate source of truth for curbing spend before it happens, and also being able to find it out so that steps can be taken to get that money back. You can really think of Weel as an instrument to enact your spend policy within the business. We set those limits, we set the visibility, we have that collective accountability. I thought it was a really powerful moment just for that client to see 10 minutes after, gave him a call and said, mate, seriously, you knew the deal. You can't go to the lounge for a drink. So just a little story there that I think sort of also sums up the value of the transaction table.
Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, this table is very valuable, and it runs as a great report. You can always filter down on this report as well. You can look at a particular date range, particular person, a particular budget. So I like saying, look, if we wanted to look at a particular person, I could do that. I could even filter on myself and say, all right, there's 2 transactions. Let's see what I've done for that particular date range. So it does give you a lot of value as well. Now, that is pretty much on the Weel end. I know a couple of our AB partners might want to see how it flows into Xero. So I've pulled that up as well. Just very simply, once you've connected with Xero, I'm going to change my business account because this is the wrong one. We're going to get onto my demo account. Simply what we're doing is we're creating that bank feed. It will be named the Weel expenses account. And all you'd have to do is you automatically establish that bank feed. All we've got to do here is drill down on the reconciliation screen on the left. So we can see those bank feed transactions that have been pulled in automatically. And on the right, we've matched them with those bill and spend money transactions. All we need to do is hit OK to reconcile because we've done all the hard work on the Weel side. And now our spend money transactions will push into the account transactions of the platform. And that's how easy and simple it is to integrate with your accounting software.
Yeah, that's exactly what Jesse was talking about earlier. So that having the spend and the spend money and the payment all in the one. So that was perfect. Yeah.
And the great thing here is it contains a chart of account coding, the tracking categories, GST, tax invoice, and your other important account and reporting information. So guys, that's it for my demo. I'm going to pass it back to Maz. And thank you all for having listened in.
Great job, Gadge. Just one, another quick poll question. Well, there's actually 2 poll questions here that we're going to launch, one after the other. The first one is if you'd like Gadge or I to reach out, if you're after some more information, we've got some really good resources that have been created just recently that we can share with you. If you'd like us to do that, we're more than happy to do that. Remember, team, this is all about education. It's not about trying to sell you anything or getting you to go out and sell to your clients, because you know your clients. So you will know which ones are going to benefit from the platform and which ones won't. But I think the other really important thing to mention here is that Weel isn't just for your clients, it's also for you. You know, it stops you from having to chase up those receipts, because Weel does that, okay? We send them the push notifications for any incomplete transactions. So it is a platform that is for both. I honestly believe it's for both. And I think when I think back of having my business, it would have been absolutely awesome to have had a product like Weel that we could have introduced. Yeah, so if you'd like us to reach out, so that's the first poll question. And then obviously there's a second question there as well. We've sort of put both of them together just to save a little bit of time. Okay, so, oh, great. I love seeing these numbers come through. This is all. Thank you so much, honestly, team, for partaking in this. We really, really appreciate it. So it's great. And there's quite a few people that would like some information. So that's absolutely fantastic too. Awesome. Okay, so there's a couple of questions that we've got up on the questions on the Q&A. So please, if you've got any while we're going through these two, don't hesitate to reach out. The first question, is Weel suitable for construction companies using these tracking categories, i.e. to help with fleet management costs, tracking expenses against jobs? Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is one of the reasons why we wanted to deep dive into the expense management side to be able to highlight that. So fantastic question. And yes is the answer. And we do have some sample, some other companies, not just construction companies, but also tradies, plumbers, builders, electricians that want to be able to cost expenses against jobs that they're working on as well. So really good question. Love that question. I have a client in mind. How do I go about setting up a demo? Absolutely fantastic. If you would like to reach out to either Gadge or myself, we can organise to have one of our product team do a demonstration for you. And we welcome you to sit on that demonstration as well, if you have the time. So yeah, please reach out to one of us and we can definitely organise that. Another question, does Weel work in rural areas? Yes, it does. So anywhere where you can tap a card, a physical card, you can use a Weel card. It's a MasterCard, so you can tap and pay anywhere. And one of the other things, which is a huge advantage in rural areas, if there's no internet, it will still work through Apple Pay. So you don't actually need the internet for it to work. Okay. Another question here from beautiful Janelle. Hi, Janelle. We use team and division in Xero. Do I set these up in settings? So in expense management. So if you're using those in Xero, when you sync your Xero accounting system to Weel, it will pick those two tracking categories up from Xero and it will put them in there for you. So the two that Gadge had actually did come from Xero, and then it just shows you as well, it's got Xero in a grayed out little box letting you know that it's come from Xero. So yes, absolutely.
And just to jump in there, Maz, I was going to say, Janelle, if you'd like, you can also jump it into Xero on the back end and hit the advanced settings, go into tracking categories, and you can set it up and sync it up that way as well. So it will feed directly through. Yeah,
if you haven't already got them set up. Yeah. Another question, if an employee makes an error in categorising an expense, where is the correction done? Weel or the accounting software? In Weel. So on that transaction table that Gadge was showing you, so you can actually change the category in there. So you could see if one of those transactions that Gadge had done that was coded to food and drinks should have been entertainment. Great, Gadge, yep. Then you can just click the drop down and it will then update, and that will then flow through to the accounting software as well. So Weel really is your source of truth, okay? One of the other things that I'll just mention really quickly, because we're out of time, we're 10 minutes over already, is you can also, we have custom workflows, and that's the next webinar that we're thinking of running, is how to use custom workflows. Everything, you can actually set up a workflow that stops a transaction from syncing up to zero until you've got all the information in there. So we can use workflows to do things like that as well. Okay, so that, watch out for the next webinar, because that's the next one that we're looking at running. And that one again will be, we look 20 to 30 minutes because we know you guys are short on time. Okay, so there was, yes, workflows will be an interesting webinar. Yep, please watch this space. We really want to be able to do these at least once a month. So we will be doing that. Okay, so team, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you've enjoyed it and that you've all gotten something out of it. As I mentioned, we do have the recording, so we will be sharing that recording with you that you can then pass on to the rest of the team. Those of you that have requested for Gadge or I to reach out, we will absolutely do that. But also, please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you need us. We're here to be able to help you. One of the things that I recognized very early on, I never thought I would be a salesperson. I did my accounting degree. I was a support person and ran training courses, never thought I'd be able to sell. I actually do enjoy selling. But having said that, I know that a lot of accountants and bookkeepers, that's one that I spoke to yesterday. Claire, when I spoke to her yesterday, I was having this conversation with her and she said, oh my God, I hate it. I hate it. I know that it's going to be good for my client, but for me to be able to sell it and sell that, she said, I just can't do that. That's what Gadge and I are here for. We can help you with that. We can do the demonstrations. We can try and highlight to the client the value and where they're going to be saving money without putting on any hard sell, because it's not about that. Okay. So on that note, thank you all very much. I love the fact that everybody is still on the call. Oh my gosh. Everybody's still on the call. Okay, I'm going to let you all go now, or dropping off now. Thank you. Thank you.
Next webinar.
See you all in the next webinar. Thanks, Gadge.
Yeah, thanks, Maz.
See you, team.